Hello everyone. We will discuss about the types of programming languages. Languages helps human beings to communicate with each other. The same way programming languages helps human beings to communicate with computers by means of writing codes or programs. So a language that helps to communicate with a computer is known as a programming language. Some of the popular programming languages are C, Java, Python, Fortran, etc. The major classification of programming languages are machine language, assembly language, and high-level language. In fact, the broad classification is high-level languages and low-level languages. A low-level language is a programming language that provides very less abstraction of programming concepts, and it is very close to writing actual machine instructions. Two examples of low-level languages are assembly language and machine language. The language which are more or less in human readable forms or more similar like English language is known as a high level language. Low level language is closer to the processor while high level language is farther away from the processor. Let us see the types in detail. First is the machine language. It is a computer programming language consisting of binary or hexadecimal instructions which a computer can respond to directly. Means there is no need of any sort of translation for the processor to understand the codes written in machine level language or machine language. Processor understands only machine language instructions, and each instruction is a sequence of ones and zeros. For example, the ASCII value for the letter A, that is capital A, is 01000001, which is equivalent of decimal 65 converted to binary in machine code. But this data is displayed as a A. Internally, the processor is understanding A as 01000001 rather than as the simple A. Machine language is considered as a low-level programming language. The disadvantages of machine language are it is difficult to code as the instructions need to be written using only 0 and 1. It is highly error prone as a single bit change, that is a 0 written as a 1 or vice versa, makes the entire program wrong. As the instructions are written using a series of ones and zeros, the program tends to be very lengthy. So in short, machine language is very difficult to use as well as to code. The second type of programming language is the assembly language. The inherent difficulties in writing the machine language program led to the development of assembly language. The low-level assembly language is designed for a specific family of processors that represents various instructions in a symbolic code and in a more understandable form. It employs a symbolic representation of the machine code or a mnemonic needed to program a given CPU architecture. It is designed for a specific processor. Assembly language is considered as a low-level programming language. It is converted to machine language by a software known as the assembler. Some of the advantages using assembly language are it requires less memory and execution time. It allows hardware-specific complex jobs in an easier way. It is suitable for time-critical jobs, and it is more suitable for writing interrupt service routines and other memory-resident programs. The third classification is the high-level language, a language which is simple and more or less like human language. Programs in high-level language is written using English language-like statements. It enables a programmer to write programs that are more or less independent of a particular type of computer. Such languages are considered high-level because they are closer to human languages and further from machine languages. High-level language provides a high level of abstraction from machine language. They do not interact directly with the hardware. They are easier to write and read when compared with assembly language and machine codes. The programs written in high-level language cannot be directly understood by a processor, so it has to be converted to a machine code by a compiler or an interpreter. High-level language are mostly oriented towards a particular class of processing problems. For example, Fortran for numeric and scientific computing. The most popular examples of high-level languages are C, C++, Java, Python, to cite a few. Now let's compare the differences between high-level language and low-level language. Low-level language is faster when compared with the high-level language. Programs in low-level language are written either in binary or in assembly language. They do not require any compilation or interpretation. It directly interacts with the registers and memory. Thus, they are comparatively faster than high-level languages. High-level languages use English statements to write programs, hence they require compilers or interpreters to translate the source to machine language. They do not interact directly with the hardware. Thus, they are slower than low-level languages. Low-level languages are more memory efficient. They generally consume less memory. High-level languages are not memory efficient. They generally run inside a specific runtime environment where several other programs are running concurrently. In order to increase optimal efficiency of the program, it consumes memory. Thus, the overall memory consumption of high-level language is comparatively more than the low-level language. The low-level languages are machine-friendly languages, so they are difficult to learn. To write a program in low-level language, we must know the binary codes or the mnemonics or low-level instruction sets. Remembering various instruction sets for different architectures seems to be very difficult or nearly impossible. Thus, low-level programming is difficult to learn. Learning low-level languages require additional knowledge and experience about the specific machine architecture. Programs in high-level languages are written using English language-like statement, which is much easier to remember than low-level binary codes or mnemonics. Hence, high-level language programming is easy compared with the low-level language programming. Low-level languages contain low-level computer instruction sets. These instructions are machine independent and are different for different architectures. Hence, programs developed are also machine dependent and are not portable. High-level languages uses English statements to write programs. They are further translated to machine language using a compiler or interpreter. There exists a separate compiler or interpreter for different machine architectures that translates the source to specific machine language. Hence, the high-level languages are machine independent and are portable. Debugging and maintenance is difficult with low-level languages. Low-level languages are more prone to errors. Error detection and maintenance is tedious and a time-consuming process. High-level languages are less error-prone. Almost all syntactical errors are identified using compilers or interpreters. They are generally easy to debug and maintain. An additional knowledge and experience is required to code a low-level language. Low-level languages are machine dependent. They require a prior knowledge of the particular architecture before one can actually write a program for that computer. High-level languages are machine independent. They do not require any prior knowledge of the computer architecture. Low-level languages interact directly with the hardware. They provide very less or no abstraction from the hardware. They are very fast compared to high-level languages and are hence generally used to develop embedded systems. High-level languages provide a higher level of abstraction from the hardware, and nowadays almost all softwares are developed using a high-level language. It is used to develop a variety of applications such as desktop applications, websites, utility softwares, mobile applications, etc. Thank you for listening.